أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. The way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is often presented to us from when we are young, perhaps due to community, due to culture, or whatever else, is through a very negative mindset. If I were to ask someone how they perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, many would state that they see God as a very angry creator sitting on a throne ready to strike down a thunderbolt every time we commit any act of wrongdoing or sin. And of course we know that this is not the Lord as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes himself, for he talks about himself as someone who is the all-merciful and is the all-compassionate. Similarly, whenever we're being reprimanded from our youth, we're often told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be angry if you do this. Or imagine if the Prophet saw you acting like this. What if Ali ibn Abi Talib were to see you saying that? What would he think? And again, through this very negative sort of perspective, we are introduced toward those personalities and individuals from Ahlul Bayt who are known for their compassion and for their kindness. Similarly, we are introduced to our Creator, who is more important in our lives than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through a lens of anger and through a lens of punishment. And very rarely do we focus upon aspects of reward, on aspects of incentive, on aspects of paradise and compassion. And for today's discussion, really briefly, I want to reflect upon a couple of verses of the Holy Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a glimpse in regards to what paradise looks like, in order that we feel inspired and we feel that sense of desire toward attaining it. For you take a look and you see that many a time, the way, again, that we are presented with reward and punishment is if you don't do X and Y and Z, you're going to get X and Y and Z, meaning punishment, reward, and so on. But very rarely do we actually see the benefit of performing deeds that are beautiful, deeds that are in a state of bringing us closer to our Creator. And you see that within the seerah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, if you take a look at a book like Mafatihul Jinan or otherwise, you see that if one performs X and Y and Z prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them this really massive house in paradise and gives them these gardens. Consistently, we are told of the reward that we are going to attain, but many a times these things are not sort of disseminated toward members of the community for whatever reason. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these ayat of the Holy Quran, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a glimpse in regards to the beauty of paradise, and hopefully it gives us the motivation to work toward it, inshallah. God states, "Inna ashab al-jannat al-yawma fi shughlin fakihun." Famous ayat from Surah Yasin, which many of us may have taken to memory. Surely the dwellers of paradise shall be in a state of happiness on that day. Inna ashab al-jannat al-yawma fi shughlin fakihun. Their only occupation, meaning the people of paradise, you and I, inshallah. The people of paradise, their only job is to be in a state of happiness. Can you imagine? Take a look at the way that we work today, the way that we study today, the way that we live our lives. We exhaust ourselves so that we can get a paycheck at the end of the day, so we can utilize some of it to take care of our responsibilities, and hopefully some of it, if we have the ability to save and if we're privileged enough, to use that money for our own enjoyment and for our own leisure. And when we get a little bit extra, we realize that this could be the wealth that brings my family and I extra happiness and extra comfortability. With vacation, with food, with whatever it might be. But in the next world, don't worry about that. Because your only job and your only stress and your only anxiety should be on how you occupy yourself toward being in a state of comfort. Inna ashab al-jannat al-yawma fi shughlin fakihun. In this world, every good thing that happens to us is filled with a little bit of stress. It's filled with a little bit of anxiety. Let me give an example. When you get your first job, something that's exciting, after you graduate college, for instance, what do you think about? You think about, the bills that you're going to start to soon ensue. When you complete college, you think about, where am I going to get a job? When you get married, you think about who's going to pay for all of this. When you have a child, you're worried whether they're healthy or not. Every enjoyment in life is also coupled with a little bit of stress. It's coupled with a little bit of anxiety. But in the world beyond this one, in paradise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's no need to worry about any of that. Inna ashab al-jannati al-yawma fi shughulin fakihun. And he continues, Hum wa azwajuhum fi dhilalin ala al-ara'iki muttaki'un. They and their spouses, or they and their company, shall be under shades, sitting on reclined couches. First of all, the word azwajuhum, according to Mufassirin of the whole Quran, is not limited to your spouse, but it could be, for instance, anyone from your friends, meaning people that you keep company with. So they and those from amongst their friend circle, for instance, will be sitting shaded, because as much as we love the sun, we also don't love for that sun to burn our faces when we're trying to look at the beautiful view of the beach, for instance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, Hum wa azwajuhum fi dhilalin, that you'll be comfortable in terms of a climate. And you'll be sitting on couches with shade over you and such detail that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that these couches, the seating that you're going to be sitting on, are going to be reclined, because no one likes to sit with good posture, right? We like to be comfortable. We like to be calm. We like to be relaxed. We like to have our feet up. There's a time for that. For those who work for the world beyond this one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees that they're going to take and have that benefit. لَهُمْ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَلَهُمْ مَا يَدَّعُونَ. In verse number 57 of Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, لَهُمْ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ. That surely in paradise the dwellers of it will have fruits, and not any type of fruits, but they will have fruits that taste so perfect and so delicious that in the way that you could never imagine they would please you and offer you a sense of contentment. Let me give you an example. We're fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. We're abstaining from food and drink. We're exhausting ourselves. And sometimes our minds tell us what it is that we want to eat hours before the time of iftar, right? So for instance, I know exactly what I want to eat, that food that I'm craving, and I'm going to make sure that I get it at the time of iftar. Many a times what happens is that we eat with our minds and we eat with our eyes, and we finally have that food in front of us, it doesn't taste nearly as good as we imagined it to taste, right? Or that we oftentimes put so much food on our plate, thinking that we have the ability to eat it, realizing that perhaps physically we can't even eat that much. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about His fruits and the food that He is going to offer us in the world beyond this one, again, it reaches levels of pleasure in ways that we could have never imagined. What happens if someone says, I don't like fruits. I don't like to eat apples or bananas or mangoes. وَلَهُمْ مَا يَدَّعُونَ. No worries. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and you will have whatever and whichever food or anything else that you desire in the world beyond this one. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us His paradise at our disposal. What a generous and merciful and compassionate Lord. لَهُمْ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَلَهُمْ مَا يَدَّعُونَ. And in verse number 58, He concludes His glimpse into paradise, this preview, by stating, سَلَامٌ قَوْلًا مِّن رَبِّ الرَّحِيمِ. Peace, this word from the all-merciful Lord, will descend. What does this mean? You know, in life, sometimes when we're enjoying any beautiful moment, we want to share those moments with those who are closest to us. So when you pass a big exam, or you get a job, or get into a college, or something really great happens to you, you hear good news, oftentimes you're going to call somebody and explain to them or tell them about how happy you are. That you're getting married, you want to make sure you're telling your friends, you're telling your members of your family. Your child has been born, you're going to make sure that you're calling your parents and telling them that my child has been born, because you want to share in that moment of happiness with others. We're a human being that loves validation. We love others to tell us you're doing a great job. We're happy for you. It makes us feel good, whether you pretend to, say that you don't care about it. In reality, many of us, we do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recognizes this aspect of the nature of the human being. And thus, when we are entered into paradise and we're surrounded by these fruits, sitting on these reclined couches with the shade over us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down His angels to tell us, Salamun qawlan min Rabbir Rahim. Peace be upon you. Your Lord, the All-Merciful, He is greeting you and welcoming you into paradise. And that moment of pleasure that we will receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be greater and far more impactful than anything else around us in terms of materialistic benefit, because we feel the comfort that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us and that we are pleased with Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from amongst the people of paradise and in the company of Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.